We've all been taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs, and to see it as the opposite of success. But what if I told you that failure isn't the enemy of success? It's the raw material for it. What if your biggest setbacks are actually setups for your greatest comebacks? This story will show you how to transform your failures into fuel for extraordinary achievement, just like the legendary phoenix that rises stronger from its own ashes. In Nashville, Tennessee, lived a 29-year-old musician named Jake. For 8 years, he had been chasing his dream of making it in the music industry. He had moved to Nashville from a small town in Ohio with nothing but his guitar, a pickup truck, and an unshakable belief that he would become a successful country music artist. Jake had tried everything. He played in dive bars, wrote songs for other artists, performed at open mic nights, and busked on Broadway Street. He had recorded 2 independent albums that barely sold a few hundred copies. His savings were gone, credit cards maxed out, living in a rundown apartment he could barely afford. His girlfriend, Emma, had been patient for years, but their relationship had become strained. "Jake, I believe in your talent, but we need to be realistic," she would say. "Maybe it's time to consider music as a hobby and find stable work." Jake's parents were even more direct. "Son, you've tried for 8 years," his father would say. "Maybe come home and take over the family hardware store." But Jake couldn't give up. Music wasn't just what he did, it was who he was. However, constant rejection and financial pressure were wearing him down. The final blow came when his manager, Rick, dropped him. "Jake, you're talented, but I can't keep representing artists who aren't generating income," Rick said. "I need to focus on artists with better commercial prospects." That night, Jake sat in his apartment feeling completely defeated. He was 29, with no money, no manager, no record deal. For the first time since moving to Nashville, he seriously considered giving up. Jake decided to visit his uncle, Thomas, who lived on a small ranch outside Nashville. Thomas was 67, a retired businessman who had built and sold 3 companies but had also experienced spectacular failures. When Jake arrived, he found Thomas working in his workshop, building a wooden table. "Uncle Thomas, I think I'm done," Jake said. 8 years in Nashville, and I have nothing to show for it. Maybe I should give up on music." Thomas set down his tools and looked at his nephew with understanding eyes. "Jake, let me tell you a story that might change how you see your situation." "Have you ever heard of the phoenix?" Thomas asked. "The mythical bird that rises from ashes?" Jake replied. "Exactly. The phoenix doesn't randomly burst into flames. It only burns when it can no longer fly or sing. It builds a nest of precious materials, then allows itself to be consumed by fire. To anyone watching, it looks like the end." Thomas walked to the window overlooking his property. "But here's the crucial part. The phoenix doesn't burn to die. It burns to be reborn. All of its experiences, all of its accumulated wisdom, all of its essence gets transformed in that fire. And when it rises from the ashes, it's not the same bird it was before. It's stronger, wiser, more powerful, and more beautiful than ever." Jake began to see the connection to his own situation. "Jake, you think these 8 years have been a waste? But what if they've been your phoenix nest? What if all the rejection, the struggle, the learning, the growth, and even the pain have been preparing you for something greater?" Thomas sat back down across from Jake. "Tell me, what have you learned in these 8 years that you didn't know when you first came to Nashville?" Jake thought for a moment. "I've learned how to write better songs, how to connect with audiences, how to handle rejection, how the music business really works, how to be professional, how to collaborate with other musicians." "Keep going," Thomas encouraged. "I've learned what kind of artist I want to be, what messages I want to share, how to persevere when things get tough. I've built relationships with other songwriters, producers, and musicians. I've developed my own unique sound and style." Thomas smiled. So you're telling me that the Jake who arrived in Nashville 8 years ago and the Jake sitting here today are the same person? Jake shook his head. No, I'm completely different. I'm a much better musician, songwriter, and performer than I was then. Exactly. You've been building your phoenix nest all this time. Every rejection taught you something. Every failed song made you a better writer. Every difficult performance made you stronger on stage. Every setback forced you to dig deeper and discover what you were really made of. Thomas continued, what feels like failure might actually be the fire that transforms you into the artist you're meant to become. But here's the key. The phoenix has to be willing to burn. It has to let go of what it was to become what it could be. Over the next few hours, Thomas helped Jake reframe his entire experience. Instead of seeing 8 years of failure, Jake began to see 8 years of preparation. The question isn't whether you should give up on music, Thomas said. The question is whether you're willing to rise from these ashes as a different kind of artist than you were before. When Jake returned to Nashville, he had a completely new perspective. Instead of trying to be the artist he thought the industry wanted, he decided to become the artist his experiences had prepared him to be. Jake started writing songs about struggle, perseverance, and the real experience of chasing dreams in Nashville. His music became more authentic, more emotional, and more relatable because it came from genuine experience rather than fantasy. He stopped trying to get a record deal and instead focused on building a direct connection with fans through social media and small venues. He used every lesson he had learned from rejection to create better music and build a stronger brand. 6 months later, one of Jake's songs about overcoming setbacks went viral on social media. The authenticity and raw emotion resonated with millions of people who had experienced their own failures and defeats. Within a year, Jake had 3 different record labels competing to sign him. But this time, he was negotiating from a position of strength rather than desperation. He chose the deal that aligned best with his artistic vision and values. 2 years later, Jake's album, Rising from Ashes, won a Grammy for Best Country Album. During his acceptance speech, he said, "This award doesn't represent my success. It represents my willingness to let my failures transform me into the artist I was meant to become." After the ceremony, Jake called his Uncle Thomas. "Uncle Thomas, you were right about the phoenix. I had to burn to become who I really was." Thomas chuckled over the phone. "Jake, you were always that person. The fire just revealed what was already there." The truth is, we all face moments when our dreams seem to be turning to ash. When everything we've worked for appears to be failing, when the path forward seems impossible, when everyone around us suggests we give up. But what if those moments aren't endings? What if they're transformations? What if failure isn't the opposite of success, but rather the raw material from which real success is built? Your setbacks aren't punishments. They're education. Your rejections aren't signs you should quit. They're refinements preparing you for the right opportunity. Your struggles aren't evidence of weakness. They're the forging process that creates strength. Like the phoenix, you have the power to rise from any ashes life creates. But first, you have to be willing to let the fire transform you rather than destroy you. You have to see failure not as an end, but as a beginning. The question isn't whether you'll face failure in pursuing your dreams. The question is whether you'll let that failure bury you or birth the stronger version of yourself that's waiting to emerge. Your phoenix moment might be closer than you think. Don't let the fire convince you it's over. Let it show you it's just the beginning. If this story inspired you to see your failures as preparation for your comeback, give it a like and share what ashes you're ready to rise from in the comments. Remember, every phoenix was once just a bird that refused to let the fire have the final word.